piece is called My Most Memorable Birthday. I popped out of bed at 8 a.m. and smiled. It was one of my favorite days of the year. April 9th, my birthday. And that year I was turning 12. You see, guys, in our family, we had a tradition that every year on the day of our actual birthday, my mom would make a homemade breakfast and a homemade birthday cake. Now, my mom was a big help nut growing up, so it was a big deal that she let my brother and I have cake for breakfast. And every year, the night before my birthday, my mom would sit me down and ask me what type of cake I wanted. And every year I said the same thing. I want a vanilla cake with vanilla icing. You see, guys, I was obsessed with vanilla. I was the kid that would douse myself in vanilla Bath and Body Works spray and then lather on the matching vanilla lotion. My room was lit with vanilla-scented candles, and I always wore vanilla chapstick. It was my favorite flavor, my favorite scent, and my favorite type of cake. And every year, on the morning of my birthday, I would race downstairs into the kitchen to see my cake. And it was never vanilla. I had chocolate cake, red velvet cake. One year I had a pie. I was like, Mom, why do you even ask? And every year, my Southern mother always had something to say. Oh, Sarah, we didn't have any vanilla extract in the house. And Sarah, I really had a craving for chocolate last night. And Sarah, doesn't red velvet look so much prettier with the party decorations? But every year I had hope that one year I would get that vanilla cake with vanilla icing. So on my 12th birthday, I jumped out of bed and I raced downstairs. The kitchen was beautifully decorated with gold streamers, pink balloons tied to the back of the chairs, and a pink tablecloth. And then I saw it. In the middle of the kitchen table was not a chocolate cake, not a red velvet cake, not even a pie. It was a white cake with white icing. I couldn't believe it! It was my dream! I finally got my vanilla cake. I ran over to my mom and squealed, "You made a vanilla cake!" She smiled. "Happy birthday, dear." My family sang me happy birthday, and then my mom cut 3 huge slices of cake. One for me, my brother, and herself. Then she said, "Birthday girl eats first." I picked up my pink plastic fork and dipped it into that moist, gooey cake. I brought it to my mouth, took a bite, chewed, and chewed. And I thought, something is not right with this cake. An awful flavor flooded my mouth, and it was not vanilla. I looked over at my brother just in time to see him cringe as he swallowed his first bite of cake. And by the look on his face, I knew this really was not vanilla cake. So I asked my mom, "Mom, what's in this cake?" My mom smiled her innocent Southern smile and said, "Oh, a good cook never reveals her secrets." And that was all I needed to know Mom had a secret. You see, my mom had made some interesting cooking choices growing up. Like the time she served my brother and I spaghetti covered in ketchup because she ran out of tomato sauce. I know. And I told her, "Mom, this is gross." And she said, "Oh, Sarah, it's fine. Tomatoes are tomatoes." Or the time when Mom said she would make my brother and I ice cream drizzled with chocolate syrup. And then she served us ice cream with a gob of Smucker's grape jelly on top. To which I said again, "Mom, this is gross." And she said, "Oh, it's fine. Sugar is sugar." That's the thing about my mom. She kind of always had a point, but I also knew not to trust her cooking. So I asked her again, "Mom, what's in this cake?" "Nothing much," she said. I looked down at my piece of cake where the icing looked like it was leaking. And then I began to panic. What if something bad was in this cake? What if it was an expired ingredient or got my brother and I really sick and we threw up? Worry set in all over my body. I jumped up out of my chair and said, "Mom, what's in this cake?" My mom threw up her hands and said something I would never forget. "Fine, if you must know, it's mayonnaise." Your icing is mayonnaise. I know. I felt the same way. I was stunned You see, I was not a picky eater as a kid. Really, I liked all the foods. But there was one food I hated, and that was mayonnaise. Mayonnaise always smelled like mildew to me, and it reminded me of flubber. Nothing to do with mayonnaise. And now she had slathered my entire birthday cake with it. I looked at my mom and said, "Mom, how could you do that?" My mom leaned against the kitchen counter and said, "Oh, Sarah, stop being so dramatic. Mayonnaise is good for you." I said, "How is mayonnaise good for me?" She said, "Because mayonnaise has eggs and eggs have protein. So eat your protein cake." I looked down at my piece of cake, where the icing was now a puddle on my plate. And then I remembered, Mom had gone to the store last night to get vanilla icing. I sat with her at the kitchen counter as she wrote on a Post-it note, "Vanilla icing," took the note and left. So I asked her, "Mom, you went to the store last night. What happened?" Immediately, my mom's mood changed. Her head sunk down and her eyes looked away. And she got very quiet, almost at a whisper, as she said, I don't know, I forgot. I just stood there in the middle of the store and I forgot why I was there." Her face was a mess of emotions. Embarrassed, confused, ashamed. I felt bad for my mom, but I could not take that mayo cake. I pushed myself away from the table and said, "This is not a vanilla cake." I ran upstairs to my room, shut the door, and burst into tears. But I wasn't really crying about the cake. I was crying because in that moment, even though I was young, I knew something was wrong with Mom. It wasn't that she forgot the vanilla icing. It was how she said it. Quiet and afraid. I wouldn't know it then, but that day was a huge sign that my mom's mental health was not okay. It started with her forgetting the vanilla icing. From there, her forgetfulness ramped up. Soon, she forgot to get my brother and I from school. She forgot to pick me up from basketball practice. And then she forgot to pay her bills. Big bills. Her credit card bill. A bill she forgot to pay for so long that one day she got a letter in the mail saying she was going to jail soon if she didn't pay her bill. Her forgetfulness put me on a constant edge. I was always anxious. But yet through it all, I always knew my mom loved my brother and I. It was a unique kind of love. One that came with whatever creation or invention she could make up off the top of her head to make up for her forgetfulness. Which is exactly how I got a mayonnaise cake on my 12th birthday. A white substance in the house that, well, looked quite like vanilla icing. It was a funny kind of love, that mayonnaise cake. But I always knew my mom loved me. She was just doing it the best way she knew how. Thank you.